Day versus Power matchup. Now, of course, Day has been kind of out of playing directly competitively because he moved to Japan. You know, he's in the Navy. He's stationed out there now, and he can't really play with Deep Blues that much, but he has been playing the game a lot. He has been streaming at what would be, you know, early morning times for us, and he's been maintaining that high X rank. You watch his stream, you see he's still got the shot. So it's not a question of, you know, is Day rusty? He's not. He's not. I guess the question of, you know, Day sniping against Power is, you know, how well is he going to be able to work with Deep Blues? Does he still have that built-in synergy and all that kind of stuff? And I think the answer is generally yes. Day was on Deep Blues for a long time. If I can recall correctly, he was on Deep Blues, like, gosh, like even leading up to Splatoon 1's endgame, he was still on that team. So there's a lot of built-in synergy there, and he has been playing with them whenever possible lately just because he knows that he's going to have to, you know, play that role at this LAN. So his skills are up there. Day has always been one of the best snipers in the West. He is going to be playing alongside Taylor, Marsh, and Dreas. And this is classic Deep Blues fare. I mean, we have, you know, Day at the back line, we have Marsh in the support slot, and we have Taylor and Dreas, two of the most, you know, terrifying slayers to be put together on the same team. And then we have Dr. Prodigy playing the coach role right now. He's going to be keeping an eye on all four of his teammates' screens, and he is going to be basically collecting information the whole time and telling his team exactly what they need to hear to make the proper adjustments to do better in this match. So I think that part of Day being the backline in the situation is not only the fact that, you know, oh, Day's, you know, he's a more dedicated backline. He's that really good sniper. Let's put him on sniper. I think it's also the fact that they know that having Day standing behind everyone and having the other four play, what benefit are you getting out of Day when there is like an actual coach in Dr. Prodigy that can be having that external help coming in? I mean, Dr. Prodigy has been a Halo coach in the past. He's coached my team in the past, and he's coached I think a couple other Splatoon teams in the past. And for those of you who don't know, the way that coaching works in Halo is you're actually, as a coach, you're allowed to stand behind your team, and you get a fifth headset, and you actually communicate with your team the whole time. So you can watch all four of their screens, you time weapons, you pay attention to objective, you give the direct orders. In the Splatoon community, we don't do that. The coach has to be silent and only talk in between matches. That all being said, being the coach is not only an in-the-moment thing. It is a long-term, you know, get to know your team, get to show the goals and objectives kind of thing. So the fact that Prodigy has been the coach for Deep Blues and a player for a long time means that he is going to know exactly what it is about his players and go right and go wrong, what to reinforce, what to stop them from doing. So I think that having Prodigy as that fifth member in the back is going to make a big difference when it comes to just making sure that they're getting as much value out of that fifth member as possible.
And to clarify one of your points, we are not talking about NA high X rank, which is probably 2,500. I want to say this is closer to the 2,800, the high 2,000s range.
Yeah, Day, he's actually in Japan, so this matchmaking system is matching him up in high-level Japanese lobbies all the time. It's not like he's, you know, doing well in NA. He's doing well in Japan.
Oh, yeah. You want to talk about intimidating. Get into a high-ranked Japanese lobby. That's intimidating. So taking a look at the map list here, Tower Control Manta Maria is where we're going to start out. We are guaranteed to also see Clam Blitz, Inkblot, Art Academy, and Splat Zones. Piranha Pit. Piranha Pit's something that we haven't seen all that much of so far.
Chargers, you ask
in this tournament. Exactly. So this is going to be I think both of these are going to be great maps for Chargers. Clam Blitz, obviously, for Inkblot, Art Academy. That raised platform going to provide lots of openings for those backliners, whether on Charger or something like a Splatling to sort of sit up the famed Charger spot on Piranha Pit, going to be coming out.
Tower control is kind of similar to Clam Blitz on this map, where the pushes don't kind of snowball out of control. There's less desperation pushes to, you know, kind of push back. So this is going to be a much more stable map mode combination. Now we see some expected weapons out of both sides. We see Pangit on that Ninja Squid Kensa machine like we always do. We see Toon breaking out the Last Ditch Effort Run Speed End Zap. That is a very good way to play this weapon. Last Ditch Effort is one of the abilities that have been buffed as of late, and it works great for a dedicated painting weapon like End Zap. Even though End Zap doesn't necessarily need it, the fact that you have that Last Ditch Effort in long-term situations where a team has pushed to 30, which can, you know, happen in tower control, you know, since you basically don't always go to overtime, if you are in a situation where you're not doing that well, you're going to get the benefits out of that Last Ditch Effort for a long time.
Marsh also going to be breaking out the Last Ditch last-ditch effort for the Kensa Undercover Umbrella. That's going to be giving them the same advantages here. Power setting up on the tower, that's exactly where you want your charger to be. That's going to allow players like Kyo to push all the way up and push this Slosher Deco all the way back. And Baller, kind of an interesting choice for tower control, but when you look at how many walls you have to potentially flank around on or even blaze a path, that's actually not a terrible choice.
All right, Penget right there taking out Dreas. The Battle of the Slash is going in Penget's favor. A revenge kill comes out soon. After a little bit of back and forth, it looks like we're back to a mostly neutral situation. FTW, of course, pushed back to mid, but not pushed out of control. So they are going to have to be persuaded to move back or taken out in order for Deep Blues to get back map control. Day being a little bit risky, I was about to say, having his Stingray in the face of Power gets taken out right now. Now that there's only a Stingray on the side of one team, Power's going to pop that Stingray, get another assist for a second kill. It looks like a third kill might happen. Does it? Not quite yet, but this is map control for FTW. They are still pushing the tower, and Deep Blues is kind of on their heels now.
And we talk about throwing that Booyah Bomb in the most ideal location. They threw that Booyah Bomb in the one jumping off point where they didn't have direct visibility. So usually you're making a blind jump into mid there, and locking that down with a Booyah Bomb is going to stop anybody from touching you or flanking around while you're trying to get that checkpoint. Taylor here going to be popping the Tenta missiles, mostly just staying in their backline side court. So double missiles going to be preventing them from really pushing forward to finish off that last checkpoint.
Oh wait, that actually wasn't double missiles. I'm dumb. It was just one miss. It looked like it would be locked on the one person, but apparently locked on the more. But in the midst of all my banter, it looks like FTW has gotten another wipe, and they're going to push past this final checkpoint. Basically, if that final checkpoint is breached, it's like an 80% success rate to knock out from that point. So Deep Blues is in a lot of trouble right now. They're able to get some trade kills right now. Are they able to take out Kyo? Yes, they are, and that is a full wipe, so they basically dodged death in this match right now by stopping FTW from getting to that final checkpoint. Now Deep Blues has a substantial portion of the match to make their own push, but like we talked about before, with tower control, the longer you wait, the harder it is to push, because sometimes the pushes in tower control can take a very long time.
I think the second checkpoint is going to be one of the most difficult to clear on a map like this one. It's very different from the first and the third, which are very open arenas. The second checkpoint is in an incredibly tight hallway, so there's multiple specials, even something as small as a splashdown, like we're seeing from the Kensa Undercover, or the Kensa Sloshing Machine, rather, that could have an impact just on the tower itself and also on anybody that's lying around there. Unfortunately for Penget, Taylor, with that accurate aim, going to be shutting down said splashdown and trying to stay alive for another kill.
Yeah, when it comes to players like Taylor and Dreas, the aim that they have, even under pressure, creates a situation where you can't go for a splashdown like Penget did to kind of like, oh, I'm going to slosh twice and splash down. That way, like, you know, if I miss, again, if I miss, I'll get rewarded by not getting, taken out in the situation. No, you really can't do that against these kinds of players. You need to use splashdown in an aggressive manner like that in a situation where there are more than one of you involved. That way, if you try to shoot down Penget, Penget's teammate is going to take you out. Penget twice using his splashdown is kind of not a panic special, but as like a one-on-one tool, not going to work out for him in that situation. While they are beating Deep Blues pretty convincingly right now, they're still not the kind of players that you can do that to.
Specials coming out from both sides. We see the ending of the Stingray as well as the splashdown coming out. Penget going to fall. That's only one person left alive. It is going to be the NZAP for FTW. So that push once again falling flat on its face around the second checkpoint area. But I think what led up to that was relatively smart from For the What. They gave themselves an opportunity to continue pushing in just by backing up, jumping out, and not trickling in when it wasn't necessary. That allows Deep Blues to not get as much special generation as they might have liked.
Whatever it is that Toon did off screen after that wipe completely stopped Deep Blues from potentially winning the game outright right there. There was only one member alive, and he was doing something at tower to stop them from pushing, and it created all this disorganization that really led to a situation that allowed FTW to respawn. It forced Deep Blues to all push back to mid, and by the time they started their push again, it was basically a neutral situation where FTW was at, a defensive I don't know the word I'm looking for. They were able to defend.
Power not able to set up in an ideal spot. That's going to force them to fall. And Day on the opposite side of that, sniping kill with a quick flick. They are going to have their Stingray online, but playing aggressively as they have to remain on the tower, but not for much longer. Taylor going to try and get a pick off. 2D will go down, but they are staying alive, getting to that checkpoint, but no! 1 point remaining, and they could not swing it. So unfortunately, a last-ditch effort, no pun intended, they're going to fall 1 point away from success, and that will be see FTW taking game 1.
I'm trying to think exactly what happened with that bomb. Oh, so it was probably the bomb going off on Marsh's shield. That's what happened. I think the suction bomb kind of landed on a spot of the tower where it was like behind that shield. So when it touched Marsh's shield, everyone got the ouches. That would have basically been game, I think. I think that Stingray being available, you know, all the members of Deep Blue's alive to kind of like move up and do all be able to perform all kinds of just offensive, you know, positioning and have these capabilities to just make sure it's like, hey, we have 4 up. You guys have 1 member alive now. We're just going to steamroll the little bit that needs to happen in order for us to make this work. And oh, gosh, that bomb just stopped all that from being able to happen.
Yeah, I feel particularly bad for Day at the end there. An offensive
I feel bad
Stingray,
for Marsh because Prodigy's probably yelling.
Well, true. I don't envy that. But having an offensive Stingray at the end of a game like that is a double-edged sword because you have 2 options. One option is obviously jump back or stay out of the team fight, use your Stingray, and then if the push is still going, try and rush as fast as you can to the tower and try and be that 2nd, 3rd, or maybe even 4th person on the tower to keep it going. What Day chose to do is the more offensive approach, which is only pull out that Stingray if absolutely necessary when many or all of the team members for the Whatt are back at their spawn and could potentially be hit by a Stingray, and try to get a couple of picks with your main weapon. However, with the bomb going off in the unfortunate way that it did, neither of those opportunities really presented themselves, and that is part of what allowed for the Whatt to just barely hold them off. But I am very optimistic that this one could potentially go to a Game 4 or a Game 5 because Deep Blues really had FTW backed up at a couple of moments there that made me think if we get 1 or 2 more opportunities, 1 or 2 more team fight wins like that, Deep Blues can really take this one far.
What you've kind of described to me kind of sounds like something that we see a lot in Clan Blitz, which is a situation in overtime where, you know, good teams don't really go for desperation pushes as much in overtime, but they go for these pushes where in a different part of the game where there would be a potential follow-up push from the enemy team, your push would be overextending and allowing the enemy team to push back a lot harder. Now, this happens in Clan Blitz a lot where you have like these suicide jump-in pushes. The enemy team cleans you up. They get a pity clam. They get map control. Then they come in and like reverse. But like we've seen so many times where a team towards the end of a Clan Blitz match will mistakenly go for one of those jump-in pushes instead of a straight-up, you know, grounded push. And what ends up happening is you give the enemy team the wipe and all this potential to push back at you. In this situation, but when it comes to overtime, if the game is going to be over after your push, all you have to do is gain the lead and then it's over. Over, you know? And that's what happened, what Deep Blues was going for in that tower control match. They were being aggressive. They were going all in because they knew that if, you know, they gained the lead and then got wiped, the game would be over. So FTW would not be able to kind of have that revenge push to put you in a bad situation. So, yes, they had the right idea in mind. They were approaching overtime like a high-level team would. It's just that bomb came in and just completely destroyed all of their ability to succeed. So, no, definitely good pointing that out. Something that I want to point out, though, is that on stage I have seen that Day has gotten up, and now Dr. Prodigy is playing in his place. So he may be playing maybe that patented blah blobber.
Environment. One of the things that's going to separate top teams from lower seeded teams is going to be their ability to not crack under pressure, and that's what Deep Blues is going to need to pull out here, as they do indeed have the Blob Lobber from Dr. Prodigy running that thermal ink. So because those bubbles individually don't do a lot of damage themselves, you're going to need that, because if you just get even one bubble off, you're going to be able to see exactly where you need to time your shots because it is still relatively delayed.
Yeah, and also the thermal ink did get that buff where it used to last as long as pressing. So when you damage someone on the map, as long as they don't have full health, you can see their squid on the map. That was also a mechanic in Splat 1. And Thermal Ink used to last as long as that affected, but it was buffed to keep lasting afterwards. So even if you are a player that is able to use the map, which is a little bit rare, but if you're that one of those players that can use the map really effectively in combat by kind of like clawing and stuff, so the way that Smash players will do some kind of advanced techniques, even if you're able to do that, you're still not able to get as much information as Thermal gives you. So weapons like Blob Lobber that can, employ it without, giving up something important, that's a big advantage.
Marsh going to be trying to go in here with the hammer, finds power
Double
and finds Kyo at the end of that push here. And I think generally speaking, specials disregarded. There's a lot more metered play going on here. You're not seeing quite as many team fights as you were seeing in that first map and mode. And I think both teams are really relying on, we need to wait not just until we have one power clam, but until we have a good stock of clams waiting around, as well as 1 or 2 specials before we even try to push in. Dr. Prodigy, with that mindset, jumping out with both their power clam in check and their special in check. So great decision there not to try and take that team fight when not necessary.
And also good presence of mind to jump to the teammate that is appropriate instead of jumping to spawn, because if you jump back to spawn, he would have sacrificed the power clam. That's not what you want to do in these kind of situations. You know, your team can still hold mid. Your team can still have these specials. You want to be able to have those resources like the power clam in your favor. And Marsh with the 3rd yeet of the first half of this game is a great situation for him. His teammate's getting picks. The bomb's not taking him out. It looks like Deep Blues might be in position to push.
And Marsh dancing around a minefield there as there were 3 bombs as well as a Tenta canopy there that he had to dodge around. 2D,
the canopy.
Yeah, a canopy. A can of pie. So 2D going to be able to get some map control back here in mid. Again, we're seeing the Tenta missiles, something that was really disregarded early on, has now become sort of a staple in this tournament. It's really replaced things like the Bubble Blower or the A-Storm as providing sort of that passive map control and also having the potential to get some picks if you're able to spot them out in a bad position.
Yeah, the camo tent is basically the cherry of this game. And ooh, that is a power moment right there. But yeah, I do agree. The way that the team comps have been shaping up in Splatoon 2 as of late is so wonderful. I mean, the devs sometimes go for some questionable decisions when it comes to balancing the game, but man, are we in a state right now where the meta just has so much variety, and even though we have those strong weapons like the Camo 10 and some of the umbrellas and flash and stuff, and man, I shouldn't be talking about that kind of stuff. I should be talking about Dreas just bringing the pain to a team like FTW right now. They have a push to 50. Now, FT Win definitely could make a push further than 50 in the next minute and 42 seconds, but with the way Deep Blues has been playing, it might be a little bit more difficult and done than said.
The dance of the slosher, often unseen but incredibly deadly. Just the ability to throw over those walls, but the mini Splatling here able to get one, and we see yet again not prioritizing the use of that special since it is just the Tenta missiles and something that you can farm relatively quickly. Now there are other specials that you definitely are going to want to hang on to, and for both of these teams, I think the hammer has been a very popular one. However, that's a 3-down situation on the side of For the Whatt, so Deep Blues able to regain that map control in mid, and we're approaching nearly the minute mark, and even though For the Whatt really hasn't gotten a lot of opportunities yet, I would say this is still a pretty even matchup here. And with 16 clams at their disposal, Deep Blues is not stopping their momentum anytime soon.
I'm curious if Dr. Prodigy is actually running Object Shredder on his blob right now, because that would be a pretty interesting to see how it's being used. But yeah, no, what we were talking about earlier about how, FTW is in a situation where they can definitely push more than 50. This is looking a little bit actually scary for Deep Blues if things go in FTW's way. No, Deep Blues said, nope, we're going to keep getting map control, we're going to keep getting picks. Marsh is going to go for that. Not
those
quite.
Weak arms again.
Yeah, you nerds. But but yeah, no, Deep Blues has said, no, we're not going to just make one push and then hope that we don't, have anything bad go down afterwards. We are going to make that push, and then we are going to continue dominating, and it's down to an overtime situation for FTW. Now, well, of course, there is potential to come back in overtime. It can be difficult in power and clams because of the 20-second limitation that you get, and it also is very difficult because you have to make it all go well in one go in a map like Inkblot, where it can be generally hard to push in the first place.
For the Whatt's final stand for this game 2 is here. 20 clams at their disposal and also 3 specials. The bombs really coming out to help them, and they used the Tenta missiles on that ramp where they couldn't swim up. It was tarped. However, 2 have already fallen. Power, one of the last remaining. It's a 2v2 situation. Tap shot there for Power is going to finish them off, but Marsh booyahing to victory, finishing off Power, and that will do it. So Deep Blues holding on, and they will tie the set up at 1 apiece.
All right, so it looks like Dr. Prodigy is going to be swapping back out for Day when it comes to this third map. So, yeah.
Ooh, Marsh.
Marsh might be, competing for Yeet Machine title with Arashi right now. Those are pretty good hammers. But, yeah, no, Deep Blues, aside from Marsh as a support weapon top scoring, which is always fun to see, we basically saw Deep Blues step into a position of dominance. They had map control that entire game. The few situations where FTW was able to push, Deep Blues completely shut it down. When it came to that overtime push, there was a really good bomb rush out of Power. He was holding down the button to get those 6 mains of bomb range out of his bomb rush to basically tell Deep Blues, hey, your plat is off limits. You're going to have to defend from behind the basket. That's going to allow us to make a non-zero amount of push attempts, which they did, and they were able to get the power climb in. But, even though a member of Deep Blues went down, I believe Dr. Prodigy was playing the Vanilla Blob, which is why he survived that splashdown. He saw it coming. He had the wall in play. And I think that FTW was basically relying on that splashdown to do more damage than it did. They did take out one member of Deep Blues, but I think that the fact that the Dr. Prodigy was basically like at ground zero where the bomb dropped, just saying like, I'm still here, I got my blah blah, we're just going to take you all out. I think that really threw them off, and it was a very effective defense. That combined with how Deep Blues played throughout that entire match kind of came together to form a situation where FTW just wasn't able to dominate. They weren't able to win.
So moving on here, going to be a 1-1 game going to Game 3, Splat Zones on Piranha Pit. It is going to be a 2-zone map. And I do think we are going to see the Chargers return. That's going to be a pretty critical component of this Game 3 is who between Day and Power is going to get the most picks. And what I often see on this map a lot of Chargers do is those conveyors on the left and right-hand side. They will generally just either stay on top of those conveyors if they have mid-control or stay just behind their own zone on top of that slightly raised platform to try and get picks to anyone who's aggressive enough to get on top of or ahead of the zone. And so the ability to defend those prime positions is going to, in my mind, determine who comes away the victor in this one.
Yeah, normally on paper, the way that backlines like Chargers fight each other is not necessarily going for like sniper 1v1s, but taking out each other's teammates and creating a surmountable advantage. Because when there are two Chargers back that are not really able to participate in the front line, and you take one of the, the 3 options that the enemy team has, that means that like, if you take the Chargers away, now you're at a 3v2 advantage. You have 150% of the manpower. And now you have like a 3v3 where your 3v3 is unfair.
So instead of a Charger, Day going to be opting to go with the hero Splatling that still will provide them with that Stingray. Not a bad pick. If you're directly behind one of those zones, it's basically going to be hitting both of them in effectively a straight line. So you are going to have a presence on the objective in that way. Pangit immediately rushing to the objective with that Kinsa Sloshing Machine. Going to be getting a couple of indirects. We'll end up trading with Taylor. And you talked about Taylor in the beginning. They are one of the main Slayer components of Deep Blues. They're going to be another key component to shut down if you're for the win.
I've talked about it in the past, but my history in Splatoon, Strange approached our Splat 1 team towards the end. We were scrim partners with Deep Blues, and basically to this day, I still kind of use Taylor as like my own, measuring stick for how well I'm doing with something. If I'm picking up a new weapon, I fight Taylor in a scrim. My ability to actually fight Taylor with that weapon kind of dictates to myself if I'm doing well with it, because, you can have all these great ideas and you could take something to solo queue, but, the way I just put it is like, but if you can't do it to Taylor, it's not actually good. You've just deceived yourself by not fighting strong enough opponents.
Ooh, and we talked about range extremes. Taylor using the very end of that Kensa Splatter Shot's range to get that kill. However, just maintaining control of this slightly raised platform and bringing back what I expected to be the most commonly played weapon at this tournament, which is the Kensa Splatter Shot Pro, which has been hit with 1 or 2 nerfs, but is still pretty prevalent. And I think when the new subs and specials came out, Booyah Bomb was a little bit underlooked, but they've tweaked it just a little bit to where I think it's found its place in the meta.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way a lot of the balance patches have gone in Splatoon. It's not necessarily making the weapon good enough, it's convincing enough people to try it and get good with it to the point where it actually becomes viable via player skill and not necessarily actually changing. But we are in a situation right now where Deep Blues might get knocked out. They are in a 4v2 situation right now. Yeah, that's going to be it.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was a lockout situation from FTW onto Deep Blues, and they were not able to bring it back to them. We were talking a little bit before the match started about that Charger matchup and how Power is more willing to win the one-on-one, to go for the one-on-ones and stuff, and he tends to be successful. Day going Splatling in that situation actually I think is a good call, because if you are in a matchup, in a charger matchup where the enemy charger is good at winning charger fights, maybe going heavy is actually the play, because heavy is already in a situation where it can't really fight charger. So it uses its painting advantage and its ability to be more aggressive to go after frontliners even more than the charger can, right? And then you also get things like more stingrays and such. So it's like, hey, if power's going to stop me from being able to participate in the one-on-one game, maybe I'll just go with a weapon that's not supposed to participate in that one-on-one game and then reap the benefits that it comes with the charger doesn't. So I think that's actually smart. The problem is that everything else went bad for Deep Blues in that game. And FTW, basically, they just got control once and did not let Deep Blues back in. And, just considering the background of FTW, their ability to be really good at zones, they practice against Japan a lot. It's almost expected that you're really not going to be able to beat them in zones. So it might not be the most scary thing ever for Deep Blues, but they're going to have to pick up the momentum to win 2 games in a row now.
Yeah, this series, whereas Pools was very much steam-rolled for one team instead of the other and a lot of snowballing, this is very much 2 heavyweights just trading blows consistently back and forth. And we've been, likening Splatoon 2 to a lot of other games. I'm going to liken it to Overwatch, as I play that pretty consistently.
Okay.
When you have a 6v6 matchup, you will sometimes have, I like to look at sniper duels in particular, so Widowmaker versus Widowmaker or Hanzo versus Hanzo. If you're consistently losing those duels in a game like that, you have the luxury and oftentimes need to have the mindset of, okay, I am not making an impression or having a presence with this hero.
Yeah.
I need to go back and switch to something that either counters that or is more effective to my team generally and not challenge them anymore.
Right.
Players in Splatoon don't have that luxury. They can't just, go into Sheldon's weapon shop and say, hey, I'm returning this one. I want to get a new weapon, please.
Can I respawn now?
Yeah. Instead, they have to think after a game and say, okay, what didn't go well for us? And I like that they have a slightly extended timer in Splatoon 2 compared to Splatoon 1, where they can sort of think about, okay, what are the changes we need to make in our composition that really is not working? What are the 1v1s that we are not winning? So Day there, I think the move was to try and go onto a weapon where just with the main weapon itself would still have a heavy presence on the objective, but would still have the special that could counter the sniper special that Power was going to bring in. So I'll be interested to see for Rainmaker the Reef, which is a very square map, lots of high ground, controlling mid is important, if they'll continue on with that splatling or if they'll deviate back over to one of the chargers.
So it looks like actually Dr. Prodigy has hopped back on, and I think he's in day slot. Okay, I'm going to look away now. But, we see a Bamboozler coming out of FTW. I mean, this is something that, like, a lot of people would see and say, oh, this is a meme weapon. But no, Bamboozler has been buffed a lot, and it is a very scary weapon with main power now. And the ability, especially with a team comp like this where you have the Pro, you have the Dually Squelchers, and you have the Fizzy Bombs, there's going to be a lot of situations where people have taken a non-zero amount of damage, and that 99 damage without any defense up in this game is going to be pretty huge. Now, right now, we see FTW being very aggressive. There's been a trade of picks right now, and it looks like they're not quite able to push up that aggressively, but if this keeps up, they're going to get an opportunity to push the Rainmaker.
I made the mistake of calling the Bamboo a meme weapon way back when I first started commentary, and I will not make that mistake again. There's actually a team here that is only Bamboo, and they did very, very well for themselves. However, in the game that we're seeing here, it's a 3v2, now 3v1 situation as for the Whatt, cycling their specials around over and over again to push forward. They're going to have to walk up this uninkable ramp, but that's pretty easy for them as they have some amount of ink to work with, getting all the way up to 16 before Deep Blues finally shuts them down. No specials, however, for them to work with. Dr. Prodigy getting desperately close to theirs, but that's all they're going to have to work off of for now, so they may want to go for a more metered push.
Now, this is a situation right there where Marsh's choice of using Toxic Mist in Rainmaker definitely paid off, because that push would have been a knockout if it wasn't for that, because this Toxic Mist slowed down the Rainmaker carrier and forced them into either a situation where they could not push fast enough to avoid death, or they had to take a suboptimal route that would give Deep Blues time to do something about it, and it worked out perfectly. The thing that is also good for Deep Blues in this situation is because that was an early game push, there is a ton of time left for Deep Blues to make a comeback. That's got the nature of Rainmaker. You can push from 0 to hero so fast that you're often in situations where if the opponent gets early lead, it's almost as if they're not at an advantage because they really can't defend for 4 minutes.
You speak the truth, even though this is a relatively wide open map. Ooh, nice flick there. Most of the actual Rainmaker paths are in pretty tight corridors or hallways, so those Toxic Mists going to be working some magic here. Pangit going to be just trying to chuck in those torpedoes, or the Fizzy Bombs rather, as often as possible. The extra bounces on those kind of is counterintuitive to the inherent nature of what a player might do when they're trying to avoid being shot, because as they're backing up, the Fizzy Bomb is advancing at the same pace, and that causes them to get hit by all 3 bounces, which usually results in a splat for the enemy team.
Yeah, there's not very many situations aside from like bomb defense and something like that is not going to net you a kill. One thing I do want to mention before we get into this next push from Deep Blues is that the Rainmaker pushed all the way left, and all the other members of Deep Blues pushed all the way right. I don't know if that was miscommunication or some kind of strategy that didn't work out, but it was stopped early. Now, however, we are in a situation where Marsh, the Rainmaker, you know, the Rainmaker main almost, is, 1 point away, is pushing. Will Deep Blues be able to pop this? Dreas, you need to get behind that wall. There's going to be an enemy popping soon. Pangit has taken damage. There are people from For the Win all over the place trying to stop Deep Blues from pushing right now. Can Deep Blues stop this? I don't think that they can. I think they're going to have to go for another push later as Toon is able to get the Rainmaker out of the danger zone.
Ooh, Deep Blues expending every possible special they had available to them, and it's just barely not enough. That may end up being the story of their lives for this set, as Toon able to just barely get out here and hold on to the Rainmaker, not feeling the need to push too far forward. The Rainmaker timer is a whole minute, so with just a minute and a half left on the clock, they can essentially burn out this entire timer and not really feel the need to get it too far into the enemy zone. However, Taylor, who's been spamming these Tenta missiles pretty consistently, trying to push them as far enough back to where the Rainmaker dies in an advantageous position. Even if it just returns back to mid, that should give them enough time to make a good push.
Now, you know, Taylor being able to spam missiles consistently is an indicator that he has been staying alive and getting a lot of picks, which is basically what Deep Blues has been doing since that initial push. And yeah, 2D is just going to be like, hi, I'd like to paint your base with your ink, please, as he just kind of runs out of time there. With only a minute left, however, I keep saying however, I'm going to get ripped apart for this on Twitter. You know, the problem is that Deep Blues only has a minute left, and even though Rainmaker is a game mode where you can make these huge pushes with not much time, when you get down to the last minute of the game, you're put under more pressure where everything has to go right, everything has to go perfect, or you're not going to get a second chance. As the clock ticks down, Deep Blues is very quickly approaching that situation.
The missile's already coming out for Taylor, and that's pushed the members of For the Whatt all the way back here. The baller already popped here, and they're going to need that once again. They're building it up rather quickly, so the baller coming online yet again for Deep Blues, and they're comfortable holding on to this one until just about overtime, but there's only 20 seconds left on the Rainmaker. The baller barely saving Dreas' life, but they're not going to have enough momentum to get up that uninkable surface, and that's going to be a difficult situation for them, as For the Whatt inking the entire path that they were trying to climb up, and that will result in no momentum gain. So again, Deep Blues coming so close, and yet so far as For the Whatt able to hold that one down.
That game really came down to Marsh dying 1 point away from victory, and that has got to be a bitter loss for Deep Blues. They played so well. And they basically did everything properly. I think that was Toon that we saw top scoring in that game, and he was in the right position a lot of the time. He's the one that stopped that Rainmaker push. He's the one that got it out of